The human race, as far as we can see, is probably around about 1.5 million years old. Certainly from its origins. Scientists even today look for the missing link. In archaeology, I tend to deal with the last 3 or 4 or 5,000 years, although I'm now beginning to reach back into the annals of time, as far back as 10,000, 12,000 years. In fact, ever since man started to tame horses and cattle and raise grain and similar foods. I'm not at all convinced that mankind simply evolved. I get the impression that there seems to be some kind of outside agency. Now don't start thinking I'm going to go off into the realms of fantasy, of aliens and things like that. But there does seem to be a need to reinvestigate how we regard ourselves and human beings and what it means to be human. Today we have these wonderful conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories are fine, but you need to back them up by evidence, and that means hard forensic evidence, not just wishful thinking. I had high hopes of President Obama when he came into power. In fact, I still do. But when I look at the situation and state of my own country, the United Kingdom, I'm very concerned. Foreign friends, one particularly called Vladimir, is going back to Russia because he thinks that Britain's increasingly becoming like the Soviet Union. He's not the only former Soviet emigre to say that. And also a South African family I've known for some years, who live in Walton, are also leaving. I wouldn't exactly say the situation in Russia or South Africa is exactly conducive to human happiness. High crime rates, high murder rates, and all the rest of it. But that tells you something when foreigners who came to this country for succour and safety to escape what they'd left behind are now returning because they feel Britain is becoming something they don't want to be in. I must admit, if it were not for my family, I'd be off tomorrow. I travel frequently to Europe and I don't find the same oppressive atmosphere there. But here, our lives are filmed, monitored, we're questioned. Politically correct policemen monitor what we say and do. Telling jokes about gays can now carry a 7-year sentence. People in Britain are now visibly living in fear, at least the ones that know something is going on, rather than those that know something is going on and don't want to admit it to themselves. Our streets, even in daylight hours, are becoming increasingly unsafe. And that worries me, because that's actually undemocratic. People seem to have forgotten that one of the marks of a truly adult, mature, democratic state is the ability to walk about without fear or favour of apprehension by the police or robbery by crooks. These days, to be honest with you, I find it hard to tell the difference. A friend of mine called Mike rang me today and said he wasn't going to use the internet anymore because he felt that people were spying upon him. I must say, I think he's made a wise decision. Unfortunately, in my work, a computer and access to the internet are vital. However, I must admit, when I first started in archaeology, the phone and the letter were sufficient. But the internet is a curse, but also a boon, because from the internet I can supplement my own researches, always backed up by hard forensic evidence, of course, but it also allows me to keep in touch with the latest developments and theories of archaeology, my profession. I run a reenactment group called it's called the Legion 9 Hispana Living History Group, and I'm finding myself my group being circumscribed and curtailed by various health and safety regulations. In fact, they seem to increase by the day, thousands of them. My insurance now costs me £1,000 a year for £5 million public insurance. I now In fact, I've got to the stage where I decline to do certain schools because I know that certain of the people that run them are so politically correct that I often wonder if they're some kind of alien invasion. They seem to lack a minimum or modicum of common sense. Like the woman last week who asked me why there were no Muslims in the Roman army. I said because the Muslims didn't come into the Roman world until about the year 750, when they sent a letter to the Byzantine emperor demanding that he submit to Islam. The Byzantines, or Romois they called themselves, told the letter writer what they thought of him and where he could go. The Muslims finally made their feelings felt when the empire in the east, what was left of the Roman Empire or Roman Imperium, collapsed in the year 1453, when the last emperor died outside the walls of Constantinople, or Istanbul as it became known. It didn't stop the Muslim war leader taking the title of the Caesars and claiming to rule in their name. I don't know why it is that elites think that they have the right to dictate and impose their views upon others. Personally, I do not wish to harm another human being, but when other human beings seek to harm me and mine, my immediate instinct is to fight back and resist with everything I have. Today we have a government in Britain that seems to want to prescribe what we think, how we say, how we speak, and what to think. It's becoming noticeable now that large numbers of academic friends who were once took for left-wing ideologues are actually going to start voting UKIP, because quite frankly they've had enough. As one friend of mine said, an Anglo-Indian gentleman called Adrian, he said he never thought that New Labour would go this far. Well, they have. I think a lot of this is coming from the ideologues that lie behind the European Union and are trying to impose this empire upon the Euro state, because let's face it, it is an empire. As one Italian politician said, or boasted, it was the first empire won without bloodshed. I think that gentleman very shortly is going to be proved wrong in very short order. If the elite persist in doing what they do, especially when they start fiddling people's expenses, lining their pockets, and living lives which are far removed from that which the ordinary people like me can relate to, I think sooner rather than later someone's going to react with a gun. It won't be me. But I have to say that there is no civilization that I've studied that has become totalitarian. It's never done it without excess of violence and murder. I wonder how far away we are from that. I don't wish to scare you, but at the moment the United Kingdom is leaderless. If a government doesn't lead and it doesn't rule, and I mean rule by consent, the consent of the people, that means you and I and every other man and woman in this country, law tends to break down. People start taking the law into their own hands, and that's exactly what's happening in the UK at the moment. Several American academics, already with their own troubles in the United States, have actually phoned me and emailed me quite concerned about the situation in the United Kingdom. I do wonder why the monarch has not dissolved Parliament. I don't know whether it's the Queen's own personal desire, or whether she's been held back, or the elite have something upon her. Now, I'm not an extremist, and like I said, I dislike violence intensely. But I have to warn the UK government and those that think they are cocksure of themselves and regard us as helots and toys and laboratory rats. There are those within the UK who will not see things the way I do. I don't know who they are, but you can bet your bottom dollar that sooner rather than later violence will be used. People don't like being told what to think and say, but it won't be me. But no civilization or totalitarian state has ever come about without violence. The Roman Republic tells us so. Thank you for listening. Please consider what I've said.